Go. Hello and welcome officially. I'm so glad we got to share who you are and where you're from. And I thought I'd share a little bit about me and how I got started in this so that you could understand what I want to offer you and where it comes from. So I married my college sweetheart right after college, and I was married for 20 years. I became an attorney 3 years into the marriage, and then was fortunate enough to stay home and raise my children for 20 years. And then I went back and became a mediator when it looked like my marriage was in trouble. So for many years, I thought I could mediate what was going on between the two of us, but it wasn't really working. And we separated, and we stayed separated for a very long time before we actually got divorced. But somewhere at the beginning or in the middle of that 10-year separation, I went to a session where I met Dick Schwartz. And when he did the meditation that took me up the mountain, and if you haven't done it, we're going to do it today, I knew that I was home, because I had parts of me that wanted to stay in the marriage. I still loved him. I had parts that wondered what it would be like to be on my own. I had terrified parts that worried about my children, parts that were worried about money, parts that didn't know what the next step was. And just being able to get in touch with self and make decisions from that place made all the difference. And when I was in the courtroom, because we didn't do this process, when I was in the courtroom with my soon-to-be ex-husband, with him sitting on one side of the courtroom and me sitting on the other, and our attorneys back with the judge, because even though I was an attorney, I couldn't weigh in to my own divorce. As we were sitting there, feeling all the feelings that were built up from the typical adversarial divorce, I told myself there had to be a better way. There had to be a better way to do this with someone that you once promised to love forever. So what I did was I used my legal background, my mediation background, and most of all my IFS background, because that was over 30 years ago. And I was certified all levels. I was an assistant trainer, and I've actually given a version of this training at every one of the IFS conferences in the last 30, not every one, but every state that I've been to has had a compassionate mediation training component. So what we're going to do today is give you as many tools as I can offer you in the context of using it in your practice. And if you'd like to learn more, there's opportunities, but I want this to be a standalone course so that if all this is that you take from me, you still get a lot of value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to the slides. And yes, and Julie put into the chat room. Thank you very much, Julie. Feel free to ask questions. Put the questions in the, Julie put two things in the chat. The first is the link to the compassionate mediation. It says compassionate mediation trainings. I'm calling compassionate mediation professionals. That's where we can meet up in between these sessions. And anytime I'm talking now, I can't see you, but if you put a question in the chat, I will go back to speaking with all of us and answer your questions. I am going to be mindful of the time. We are going to stop at 1:30 today. However, if there are questions and you want to stay on, I'll stay on with you, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So put your questions in while they come up, and then I'll get back to them afterwards. Okay, now I have to get out of that. Thank you for putting up with the technology. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and we're starting. Okay, here we go. Okay, welcome officially. Welcome to Compassionate Mediation Tools for Your Practice Now. I'm Linda Kroll. I'm a therapist, mediator, and attorney. And I got into this idea for compassionate mediation because I really like the idea of happy relationships. And there aren't always the kind of self-led relationships that we need to promote. But what we do is we offer our clients a new way to communicate so that they can really their highest and best self with compassion and understanding. And with that, there's a sense of forgiveness for your partner and yourself, empathy, and be kind to your inner child. So what I want to do is stop the share for just a minute because I want to stop my video. So it's just the shared screen. There we go. Sorry about that. Technological differences. Okay, we're back. There we go. I'll get better next time. There we go. Okay, so what is compassionate mediation? Who's it for? What is it? When do you use it? How do you use it? We're going to cover all that today. But I want to remind you that it helps an individual as well as a couple, and it's good for marriage counseling. So if they're happy and hopeful, they can learn a better way to communicate. If they're unhappy and stuck, we can look at their limiting beliefs or what stories their parts hold and help them get past stuck. If they're divided in wanting to stay or go, and that could either be the couple that's divided or a person that's divided, because you know how it is. Sometimes you think you want to stay and other times you think you want to go and you can't decide. So it helps us help all those parts of our clients. It helps people that are separated and navigating their way through the separation. If they're in the middle of a divorce, I've helped people that have been able to relate to their higher self with compassion and empathy for their partner and switch the whole energy of their divorce into a much peaceful and respectful restructuring of their family. And it helps people post-divorce because, as you know, our clients come in with wounds from the past, and sometimes this training and what you offer them can help put it into a different perspective where they actually can forgive themselves and their partner and move on to a new post-divorce relationship that's much more self-led. So you might have a client that comes in, some of you mentioned eating disorders or trauma, and they're suffering and they don't even know why they're suffering. But deep down, there's a relationship issue that they're not getting to. So they may feel ignored, they may feel unloved. And if the individual comes to your office, you can still help them take what you teach them back to their relationship, because it's going to help them communicate about everything. You help your clients avoid this and do more of that, because when they're relating self to self, there's a oneness in that communication. So we got a little bit into who you are and what you hope to learn, but go even deeper for your intentions. I want to give you more tools, more collaboration. I want to help make you an expert in this field, whatever this field is going to become. I want to help you collaborate with other people and find a way to increase your confidence working with conflict, and also give you a certain expertise and eventually, if you want, a certification, which we'll talk about. But think about it and put those intentions into today. And we have a community here where all of these are represented. And they're all represented because it's important when couples get together that should they decide to separate or divorce, that everybody speaks the same language. Because if you're a therapist and you help someone to get to self and you send them to an attorney who's actually representing one of their extreme parts, a lot of that energy gets lost. So I'm hoping that we can take the seeds of this idea and send it out into the world, all over the world, and create a community of healing. So take a breath and just think about what you're like when you're with your clients. And how many of your clients are wondering, should they stay or go? And someone mentioned that after this pandemic, especially with all the enforced togetherness or separateness, that's probably crossed people's minds. So we can help them by giving them the tools of this online or in person. And then you can help them with even more in your toolbox. So whether you've got a client whose partner is not paying attention, two people that are stonewalling, or somebody that's actively fighting, what are your challenges? I know I had a lot. Some people get anxious with couples in conflict. An angry man or woman reminds me of my spouse or parent. Sometimes I would side with the underdog. I'd see who seemed to be in more pain and I'd side with them, forgetting that the person that was angry was really in just as much pain as the person who was sad. You might feel that because you're not a mediator or an attorney, you can't offer information to your clients about legal or financial issues. But the reality is, once you even mention finances or law, you then deal with the feelings that come up around that. So there's the content, which I'll give you, and there's the process, which you'll give your client. I don't know what to tell my clients. That's what I'm going to offer you. What's the information that can keep you one step ahead of your clients to help them navigate whatever decisions they're going to make? And I want to help you not refer out when divorce is mentioned. It just becomes an opportunity to help people decide whether that's what they really want to do, or if they come from their highest and best self, let go of their limiting beliefs, unburden pain from the past, and relate from their heart, can they create a new relationship? And often they can. And some of us might know how to stay in self with clients in conflict because, again, we're triggered in a lot of ways. So my hope for today and this whole 3-month experience we'll have together is you'll find one or more tools you can take with you today and have one or more clients who can benefit. I'd like to make sure you get all your questions answered, so don't be afraid to ask them. I'd love to meet all your needs. My codependent part wants to meet all your needs, and I hope you'll want to learn more. So what we're going to cover today is the introduction to compassionate mediation, how I have a self and parts conversation with my clients. I'm going to give you the overview of what a first session would look like. If we have time today, I'm going to role play an interview. If we don't, I'll do it next time. And there's a meditation and a question and answer co-creation of whatever you need to know. In session 2, we're going to follow the Miracle of Empathy handout, how to help people explore their options, how to stay ahead with legal and financial information you can offer them, and again, whatever questions you have. So a few tools of compassionate mediation are listed here. We're certainly not going to get to all of them today, but hopefully in the next few weeks we will. So you'll have them to use as you desire. And in session 3, we'll go back to the tools, more legal and financial information. I'm going to talk to you more about the compassionate mediation program and coach certification if you're interested, and whatever else we have left off. So I'm going to take a breath. I invite you to do the same. And I just want to share that I think my view of the world is that behind every cloud, the sun is still shining. This was taken at daybreak in Sedona. And even though there's a lot of trauma going on right now, sometimes this is an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth. So what we're going to do is use this experience to help our clients, most of whom don't really know what they want. In other words, what they think they want and what they want changes from moment to moment. So I have a magic wand question. And as a therapist and a mediator, I'm an attorney, but mostly just to do mediation. When someone comes to my office, they may not know why they're there. If they're there as a couple, they might be there for 2 different reasons. And I'll often find a way to ask them the magic wand question to find out if they could make the perfect relationship. What do they really want with their partner now? A more intimate relationship, a respectful separation, a peaceful divorce. And most of the time they're often not sure. And when they get to the place where divorce does become an option, litigation is the old-fashioned way where people fought with each other, sadly. Collaborative law, which is mentioned, is a wonderful alternative. It requires 2 clients to have their own attorneys. The 4 of them meet together. They often bring in other experts, and the attorneys promise not to go to court to battle it out. If they do become a battle, then they walk away from the collaboration. It involves a lot of experts. And so between litigation, collaborative law, mediation, standard mediation was the clients work with a mediator. And in all of these options, divorce is the only option. They both go in wanting a divorce. The thing I like about compassionate mediation is that we bring hope to conflict. So because we're IFS trained, or will be, we know how to stay present with someone's pain and give them a sense that when they become more self-led, the answers will be forthcoming, which leads to more hope, and then healing, and then happiness. So in terms of offering hope, I like to think we're talking them off the ledge. And what that means is I had a client call me for a session that I did online last week. And the biggest goal of that session was to help her realize she didn't have to do anything right now. Because when they come to you, they're so by the backlog of pain and suffering, or walls that they've built around their heart, or filters through which they're judging their partner, that they feel like they have to make some decision now. And of course, that's a parts-led decision. It's not a self-led decision. So as we help them off the ledge, we give them hope that they don't have to worry about their children, because their children aren't going to hear the anger and the fighting, or the withdrawal and the silence. They really are going to find a new way to communicate. And I teach them that in my first session, and I want to give you the tools to teach them that too. So it does heal relationships of all kinds, and not just couples. If you think of this in terms of a context even today of somebody that you have a conflict with, it might be a friend or a parent or a child or a colleague, a lot of what we're going to talk about will help heal that relationship too. So what compassionate mediation is a new modality. And somebody once told me that pioneers get shot and settlers get rich, meaning it's a whole new concept. And it's hard to get people to wrap their head around it, because they think it's just for people that want divorce. But it's a new modality of working with individuals and couples. And in doing so, you can address their emotional, spiritual, financial, legal, and even sexual issues. Because as you know, when someone's mad, sex cools in the bedroom. And as you heal that, and they become more self-led and feel more compassion and empathy from their partners, sex comes back. So clients gain the insights and skills necessary to decide if they want to restructure their current relationship into something better together, or separate under the best possible conditions for all concerned. So that's the difference between compassionate mediation and all those other forms of divorce and mediation, is it gives them hope. It gives them a chance to create something new and better together into a new compassionate relationship. Or if what they decide once they talk about from self, how they feel about finances, parenting, sex, extended family, when they talk about all of it, they may find that they're really not compatible anymore. So there's a way to have a self-led divorce where you're really coming from your highest and best self. And we give them that opportunity in compassionate mediation. And I do believe that if people would do as much work on themselves in their marriage as they have to do to get divorced, they could take that new and improved version of themselves to create a much better relationship. So that's what we're helping our clients do. We're helping them do the work first on themselves, and then take that version into their relationship. Because when Dick says, when there's a critical mass of self present, healing happens. So if there's a critical mass of self that one individual brings back to their relationship, healing can transform that relationship. Because often, if you have the courage to talk about an ending with compassion and confidence, it allows an individual or couple to consider a brand new beginning based on who they are now and what they want moving forward. Okay, breath time. We're going to switch gears in a minute, and I'm going to give you some information about the first session. So what we do is we combine the legal education that I had, the healing I got from IFS, the spiritual information I got from the Chopra Center. I'm a teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. I studied 5 years with Deepak Chopra, David Simon, David G at the Chopra Center, and also my mediation certification. So I put all that together, the psychology, the spirituality, the legal and financial information, all provided for you in the Compassionate Mediation Program. And my thanks to Dick and IFS, because in 2016, I finally wrote the book. That was me before chemotherapy. I'm thankfully all better. And now I'm gray, but that was me before. And Dick says that divorce brings out the worst in us and often leaves lasting scars. That he says, I'm a master at lifting divorcing couples out of their narrow protective perspectives. They then learn the larger lessons from their relationships and proceed based on the best interest of all involved. This is relationship healing at its best. And you can get a free sample there at lindakroll.com. I'm stopping my share because I want to make sure that you can hear me. Can you write in the chat? Because my earphones just made a little sound. Can you hear me? Right into the slides. Yes, good. Sorry about that. I promise next time I won't. Thank you. Thank you. I'll go back to sharing, but I had this fear. There we go. Sorry about that. When I can, I'll edit out these things, but I at least want to make sure you can hear me. Okay. So if you go to lindakrollbook.com, you can get a free chapter, which explains how IFS and self-leadership goes through this process. I also wrote a book called Compassionate Divorce, Changing the Face of Divorce One Heart at a Time. That's on Kindle, and it's got some videos about compassionate mediation. Again, just other things you can know about. But basically, my goal is to find an answer to changing the face of divorce one heart at a time. And when anybody is wondering, should I stay or should I go, they know they need some compassionate mediation. And here's what my clients have said, that they get significant improvements. There can be a compassionate divorce. They can create a new marriage. They can move mindfully through the process with peace and hope, give up destructive patterns, love all parts of themselves, and move forward with peace and strength. So that's what I want for your clients, because we're going to teach them how to compassionately communicate. Because when we do, families need not be broken, but can be peacefully and respectfully restructured. And I hope you got my roadmap. If you didn't, go to lindakroll.com/roadmap. This is an outline of the Compassionate Mediation Program. It's a 5-module program for an individual or couple who wants to add passion to their marriage or compassion to their divorce. And I've created a Compassionate Communication Academy. And this Compassionate Mediation Program, the reason I want to give you this overview is because sometimes you'll hear me reference the Compassionate Mediation Program, sometimes the training, and sometimes the certification. So the Compassionate Mediation Program is for individuals and couples. It's a 6-module course. This is for therapists and professionals. I've got a training, and you're taking this course here. Coaching certification has different levels, and there's more about that some other time. But basically, the Compassionate Mediation Program, meaning if you're helping one of your clients in whatever form they come in, if this is the only course you take, you want to help them know how to be their best self, know how to create a compassionate relationship, learn how to explore all their options. It's not just stay or go. There's so many options. They need to understand their finances. And sometimes if they understand their finances in the context of staying together, but reevaluate their roles according to what they both need, again, that changes the dynamic and creates a new relationship. And then they can create the relationship that they desire and deserve, which is hopefully to stay connected if that's what they want. Compassionate mediation training. So CMP is Compassionate Mediation Program. CMT is the training. I want to help you bring your best self. Know the initial interview we're going to go over, offer the miracle of empathy, give you the legal and financial information that you can use when needed, and help your clients make self-led decisions for their future. And again, here is where this would fit into that. In the different certification, you get the training, you get the tools, and everything else for another time. Okay, compassionate communication, what is it? It begins with the love, compassion, empathy, and forgiveness you can offer to yourself, which is often forgotten because that's where it starts. It's connecting to your highest self, letting go of your limiting beliefs that the managers hold on to, unburden the pain from your past that your exiles are carrying, and truly relate from your heart. Because you know, we all get grumpy. I took this at Disney World. Don't you love it? So we all have grumpy parts, and it's okay. But often what we do with our partner is we pretend everything's fine, and we're sitting on a lot of baggage. So are our clients. And what we need to help them do is let go of those limiting beliefs, lower the walls that they built around their heart, and change the filters through which they're judging themselves and their partner. And then they can create a compassionate relationship because they've practiced compassionate communication, they've given empathy to themselves and their partner, they've learned the 5 steps to get what you want and need, which we'll talk a little bit about today and next time. And then together they can enjoy more partnership, passion, and fun. That's the goal. So what parts do you see when your clients come in? Fighting, stonewalling, distant. With me, I love this. This is at Burning Man, Joshua Tree, I think. This is what I see when I see my clients. No matter how angry, how walled, how stoic, how sad, I always see the inner child yearning for connection. And my goal, it starts from the moment they get in my office, is to help them see that inner child in each other and themselves and learn how to take good care. Because I found that many people leave their relationships when they could stay, and others stay when they should leave. And we can help the ones that need to stay learn how, and we can help give courage and information and support to people that maybe should move on in their lives. Excuse me. There we go. So, new day dawning or storm clouds coming. This too shall pass. Same with the pandemic, definitely storm clouds, but new days dawning. And that's how I feel about relationships with individuals and couples that come into my office. And if it leads to a divorce, then we use all the skills we've already used, the compassionate communication, empathy, and mediation, and help them peacefully and respectfully restructure. So what do you do when you're faced with clients that really don't know what they want to do? I want you to remember that it's not what you're doing, it's who you are being. And Wayne Dyer has said, when we change the way we look at something, what we look at changes. So when we're in self, we're calm when chaos is around us, clear about our role in bringing peace, compassionate to everyone in our office, confident about our ability to be of service, connected to your higher self, whatever that means, courageous no matter what our clients are doing in conflict mode, creative to find a peaceful resolution, and curious about others and their needs, those 8 C words that Dick talks about of self-leadership. But we're not always in self. We have different parts. And IFS calls parts the protective aspects of ourselves with certain behaviors, beliefs, and burdens. But my way of looking at things, and I think yours too, just by the introductions you did, is that we're not just the drop in the ocean, we're the entire ocean in the drop. And our egos keep crashing into things, but our soul is always peace. And I do believe when we're in self, we were born enlightened. And all we have to do is let go of what we think we already know. Give up those judgments. And a client who's in self is also in those C words. They can make clear decisions. They can be compassionate for themselves and each other. They can ask for what they need. They can stay connected to the process without zoning out or needing to hire a lawyer take over and be and have animosity there. They can be courageous no matter what's happening. They can co-create reasonable compromises and be curious about options and resolutions. And when a client's not in self, they're either acting like a victim, which there's an exiled feeling of sadness, or an aggressor, they're getting extreme, or they codependently act nice to manage, but secretly is furious and can't participate because they feel so overwhelmed, betrayed, retributive, fearful, or depressed. Now, one last breath here while we talk about the first session. Here we go. And when I say the first session, this is good with your clients now. So even if you've got clients that you've been working with and just want to bring some of these tools in with them, or you're talking to an individual or couple online, oftentimes they will try to ignore what the real issue is. And getting them to talk about it is often a challenge. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the initial interview. And they're all imprisoned by their stories. We all are. This is Alcatraz. I took it from a boat in San Francisco. But we can let our stories go and be free, because our parents and caregivers did the best they could according to their level of awareness at the time. I like this cartoon. If you notice, it's a convention of children from functional families. And it says that you've done the best you know how to do, and now you can do better. But if you see in the convention, there's only one person there, because I think we all have some kind of dysfunction in our families. We all have families, even perfect families, put the impetus on having to be perfect, and therefore it's an issue. So my family of origin, that's me at 4, I had a very loving family, but my father was manic depressive, so he yelled a lot. And I grew up to be a very high functioning codependent. I was afraid of anger. I was afraid of my father's anger. I was afraid of my anger. I was afraid of my husband's anger. And so when I was separating and getting divorced, I didn't know how to advocate for myself. And understanding my inner child and taking better care of her was part of my growth process. And it helps when you know that you deserve to get your needs met, that the first step, we'll talk more about this next time, is to remember what you want and need. We help our clients remember, because often they forget what they want and need. They think about what they don't want. We help them know how to deserve it, which means we might have to do some unburdening of some of the exiles carrying some old messages. And when they can remember what they want and need and know they deserve it, they learn how to ask for it. So it's not a whine or a demand or an ultimatum, it's a simple request. And then they can be willing to receive and stay grateful. And we'll talk more about that. So I want to offer you the interview template that I've used for many, many years. This is in your, it was in your bonuses. It's in the lindakroll.com tools replay. You can download another copy of it or just follow along here. So when I have someone that comes in, well, before I go here, I want to exit out. I want to stop my share and I want to check in. So let's see what kind of questions we have. Julie, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, yep, I'm right here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm not going to put everybody back on, but I'm going to put myself back on. Here we go.
I'll tell you what questions we have.
Please, whoops. Okay, go ahead.
So can compassionate mediation be used to help already divorced couples to improve their co-parenting communication and relationship?
Absolutely. And the way you do that is, even if you're working with one member of the partnership, you help them get to their higher self. You help them understand the other party's perspective with a little more empathy. You teach them a way they can communicate with their partner outside, even if you're with one parent. If you're with both parents, you can do it together. But it's really teaching these same things and even exploring their options. It's not whether they're going to stay or go. Their options are, how are they going to co-parent? How are they going to share custody? How are they going to handle dating? I mean, they've got a lot of options, but when you learn to do it from your higher self and talk about empathy, which we're going to go into next time, then miracles happen and relationships transform. Does that answer the question? If not, put it into the chat and see if that's good. Okay. Okay.
One more.
What other?
One more. It
Yes.
goes along with that one. Also was wondering when one partner is shut down, as in the case of a personality disorder, will it still work?
Well, it helps with you if you're the one that doesn't have the personality disorder, because it helps you be more compassionate about your partner's limitations. So instead of resenting and regretting and being angry, you either decide what you can accept and what you can't. And if you can't, then there's a way to exit the relationship with a lot of compassion, a lot of love, a lot of kindness, and a lot of respect. Does that answer that question? So you're not going to, you can't change somebody else, but you can change how you're relating to someone else. And like Wayne Dyer says, if we're relating to our partner from our reactive parts, if we're responding to them in a way that triggers their parts and they trigger our parts, that cycle keeps on going. Once we take a breath, once we come from our highest self, once we bring a little more higher consciousness in there, where we're not reactive, we're responsive, then we can respond in a way that gives respect to our partners and helps them put their weapons down. And then you create a new relationship. And if the relationship has come to an end because you don't meet each other's needs anymore, and you might be more unhappy together than you would be apart, then it leads to a whole other dialogue about what are your options. But in compassionate mediation, if you're dialoguing about a divorce, each step of the way, you go back and make sure you're in self. So there's the content of what you're talking about, and there's the process of how you're relating. So in the process, you want to make sure that you help your clients heal their parts. Does that make sense? Good. Julie, what else? Anything else? Can you hear me or?
All right. Whoops. Sorry. One more.
That's
just
okay.
a comment.
All right, good.
There's one more. It
Yes.
sounds like compassionate mediation can be used even if you have a couple where divorce has happened when one partner has been abusive, ? By working with the willing partner.
Well, the partner that's been abusive has to be willing to do their own work to heal the part that gets abusive. In other words, IFS talks about exile parts, manager parts, and firefighter parts. Ever since 2011, I talk about extreme parts because firefighters were the heroes. So I don't use firefighters, I use extreme. But an extreme part is taking over because there's another part that's hurt and sad and scared and can't manage anymore. So if the abuser is willing to heal their behavior and make amends, then there's hope. If the abuser isn't, then no. Not if you're going to keep being abused. Okay, anything else? Cool. We've got 30 minutes and a lot to cover, and here we go. Anybody else? I'm looking at the chat. I love the Burning Man image too. Okay. All right. Some people have to leave early, but you can hear the thing. Was wondering if it's shut down. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Julie, you handled it great. Back to the sharing. I'm going to turn my thing off and we're going to go to the first session. All right. So when I am working with an individual or couple and they come in, I see them, if I'm working with an individual, I just do my own intake and I have in my head what I want to ask them. And I have a single sheet of paper, I take notes, and I want to give you the template for this. We'll go more deeply into it next time. But basically what I'm trying to find out is how much self-leadership is there. So if I'm working with a couple, I have a waiting room and I work with each of them individually. And in the first 10 or 15 minutes, I can get information that covers this whole sheet. And I'll show you how. So when we're looking at this, let me put it onto the play. There we go. Okay, technological success. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm when they're together, so if they come into let's say they come in as a couple and you're working with a couple, and they come in and I talk to them a few minutes just to let them know I'm here for them, give them an opportunity to be heard in my office. And I'm really looking at how do they relate? Where do they sit in my office? How are they relating to each other? I might ask them a few individual questions that either one of them can answer, like when they got married, if they separated, how old are their children, and if they've had prior therapy. The initiator, non-initiator comes into play if you're doing divorce mediation, because I don't always ask that. But I always ask a few individual questions, and then I separate them, and I take the person that I didn't speak to on the phone. Because if one of the members called me, I make sure that the person I didn't speak to is the one I interview first. And it's amazing what happens when their partner leaves the office. So just like I took a breath, they take a breath. They take a breath, they let their guard down. Sometimes they cry. They definitely breathe bigger. And it's my chance to ask them the questions on the left. How are you feeling? I want to know what part they're sitting in. Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they scared? And all this time, and you've known enough IFS, and for those of you to whom IFS is new, you're becoming a parts detector. You're going to find those behaviors, thoughts that aren't calm, clear, and compassionate. And you're just going to take note. You're just going to observe. Sometimes I ask them the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and the outcome would be whatever would be in your highest and best good, what would it be? And you can get a lot from that question, because sometimes they say, I just want to be divorced. I don't want to go through divorce, but I can't take it anymore. And sometimes they say, I really wish we could relate better. So when you know what the goal is, you know where each one is coming from and focused on. And then you ask what's in the way. And here you start listening to their parts. What's in the way is my husband works all the time. What's in the way is she's always out shopping. What's in the way is we don't have sex. So as she's telling me or he's telling me what's in the way, I'm listening through the filter of what part am I hearing? What are they exiling? How do they manage? And what do they do when they get extreme? So when I say, what does your partner do that triggers you? What I'm really saying is, what parts of your partner don't you like? And then how do you react is, what parts of you react? And when I say, what do you do that bothers your partner? I now have their partner's perception of the parts they don't like, and there's so many parts going on here, but you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to do an ongoing analysis to see what parts are going to need attention. And then in the time alone, go to the upper right, because I ask about their family of origin. And I make a genogram. I'm going to show you how to do that. But I make a genogram because what I want to know is, what was their father like? What was their mother like? What was the relationship between their father and mother? What was their siblings? What was their birth order and their family dynamics in the past and in the present? Are there any secrets? Was there drinking, addiction, codependency, mental illness, abuse? And I make a little genogram, and again, I'm taking notes for myself. Notes to tell me what's their legacy burdens that they've brought into their relationship. How am I going to help them not only understand why they act the way they do, but even more so sometimes why their partner acts the way he or she does. And I get that information from both of them. And I'm listening in the lower left to see what exiles, managers, and extreme parts I'm listening for. Where's their sadness, hurt, vulnerability? Is one of them sad, but they're really angry? Because a lot of people exile their anger. How are they trying to manage? And what do they do when they get extreme? So I get this in about 15 minutes. Yep, 15 minutes. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Because what you're going to be is a parts detector. So you notice their body language. If they're coming to you for mediation, or if you feel one of them is thinking about leaving, do they hope they'll reconcile? Is there a possibility of creating a new relationship? And an answer to the question about abuse, if there's adultery, abuse, or addiction without a desire to stop or change the behavior, then divorce will likely be the most likely outcome. But if there are hurt feelings that have never been acknowledged or healed, there is a chance that communications training can finally enable each party to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. And I promise, with the miracle of empathy, miracles really happen. So sometimes I also ask them in their first interview with me, or any interview, what's your biggest concerns? Is there a fear of physical abuse? And I also offer what needs to happen until the next session, because some people come in and they're concerned about their children and we need to talk about how to co-parent. Other people are worried about how to spend money. So find out from them what they need from you in that session. You find out if either one's having an affair. And even if they do or are, people can heal from affairs. I look at an affair as an extreme part that one party is using to numb from the pain of what they're not getting in their relationship. I try to find out how contentious is the living arrangement and how the children are doing. Because if the living arrangement is contentious, then we may need to consider a separation sooner rather than later, because I want them to be safe. But often just beginning the conversation with me or with you will give them a sense of hope that things can be better, and that will go a long way in making the living arrangement less contentious. I ask them about their children, how old they are and what they know about the relationship, and to see if we need to talk about the children. And what do they want to share with their children? Because they don't have to share anything, but at some point they may have to share more, and I will help you help them do that. And again, when I'm asking about the family of origin, I'm trying to find out what messages they're taking into their current relationship. So here's the things I try to put in a genogram, and here's what a genogram looks like. I made that on Canva. I just make a little note. You don't have to, I'm just trying to show you, you put your father, the mother, where they are in their sibling relationships, and you can tell a lot about that. Because if they say they've got an alcoholic father, then you already know that they came from a codependent situation. If they're one of 6 children, the baby of 6 children, that's different than being the firstborn. Depending on how they relate to their family, you can tell what they're used to in terms of problem solving. So putting that genogram there will help you to get an overview of them, and also help you relate to them for the overview that they need. So with the magic wand, I find out what they want. Do they want to stay together? Have they spoken with their attorney? And are their expectations realistic? If they want a divorce, again, the initiator and non-initiator will have different parts. And I want to know what are the issues that led to divorce. I'm listening from their parts. I want to know if they can create a new marriage, and if they're done or just really hurt. So that's the overview. And I want to do a role play next time, so you'll see how you can, and the only reason I'm saying next time is because I want to make sure we have time for questions. But in the role play, you'll see how I can work with you individually and get to all those questions. So let's come out for just a minute and again, see questions. How are we doing question-wise?
I don't see any right now, Linda. Everybody's still listening. Oh, there might be.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Yes, Joan, thank you. We are moving fast, and I'm going to slow it down. And you have you have access to the videos. So you'll have access to all of the videos. Is the genogram a helpful process to use when coaching individual? Yes, absolutely. The genogram is always a good thing to have, because when you have context from your client, you can then see the inner child that they were and how they were brought up. So you can see, hold on, I'll get this down, here we go. You can see what they're dealing with. So if they came from an addictive home or an abusive home, or one where they learn not to talk about their feelings, you can help them see that that's something they learned, that they can practice a new way to communicate. In terms of the slides, everything that you need to have will be downloadable. So you'll have all the information you need. Okay, there's 100 slides. I don't know if I'll do the whole slides, but you'll get all the information you need because you have at your disposal the initial interview template. And the questions, I'll give you those too. So you'll have all the questions you need to ask. All right, anything else? Okay. Is there anyone who wants to briefly, okay, if I were doing a role play right now. Oh, yes, Shobha, we can use this process when folks are co-housing or leaving a work situation and not in an intimate relationship and seeking mediation. There is nothing that I'm saying today that doesn't apply to every single relationship. Every single. Parent, child, couple, you with your parents, co-workers. We get triggered by other people. And we as therapists form a safe environment for the people that are triggered to learn what it means to be in self. So I get triggered by time restraints when I know I have so much to offer and I'm running out of time. And then I speak really, really fast. So I'm going to take a breath. Know whatever's meant to come through today will. I'll send you whatever information you need. And we have many more times to be together. So yes, you can use this process with individuals, couples, work, home, school, everywhere. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go over how I take the information that I've gathered and explain it to my client in the first session. Does that sound like that would be helpful? I want to make sure you're there. Is there a yes, maybe? Yes. Great. Because I have a blurb that I give my clients the first time they come in. So I'm going to turn off my video, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to the blurb I give. So let's say that you were my client, or your client was in, and they just shared with you that they came from a family where there was drinking and they're one of 12, and the woman tells you, or let's say we've got an individual who's just shared with you that that's where she came from and she can't get along with her husband because he works all the time, and whenever she tries to talk to him about it, he walls her off and watches TV. Let's use that for now. So I sit them down on the couch together because they've been apart for a few minutes. And I have an easel in my office and it has some variation of this on it. It's actually written by hand, so it doesn't feel as formal. And I tell them they're going to hear my 2-minute blurb. I say to them, everybody that comes to my office, whether they're coming for individual counseling, couples counseling, or divorce mediation, gets my blurb. Are you ready? So here it goes. I believe we all have a healthy self. And when we're in self, we're calm, clear, compassionate, courageous, well, actually with them, I just start with, we all have a healthy self. And when we're in self, we're calm, clear, and compassionate. But we're not always in self, right? We're in parts. And I go to the easel. We're in exiles, managers, or extreme parts. Then I move to one side of the easel and I say, some of us exile our sadness and our hurt and our fear and our vulnerability. And some of us hide away our anger too, because it wasn't safe to be angry. But this is the ultimate, what about me? Who's going to want love and care for me the way I need? This is our inner child. So when we don't want to deal with our exiles, we go out in the world and we manage. Some of us manage by being angry or caretaking or distant or judgmental or perfectionistic. But a lot of us put on what I call a pseudo self. where we look like we're in self, but we're really having these feelings underneath that we're not attending to. And this is the way our mind works, our ego works. And then we get extreme. When those managers can't contain the exiles, out come extreme parts, and they fight with each other. So we might go have an affair, get depressed, get addicted to work or shopping or drugs or alcohol. We might eat too much, have panic attacks, get enraged, decide we want a divorce, go shopping, put up walls. But these are ways to numb. These are ways to be reactive. And then what I do is I go to the board and I put 2 squares on the board. And I say, if I could draw, these would be castles. And hiding in the dungeon, afraid to be seen, are the exiles. Standing guard are the managers, making sure there's no threat. And if there is a threat, out come the extreme parts fighting with each other. And the only way for safety to happen is for self to be present. And my job is to get you to self. So that's my blurb. And with the exiles, I just remind them that we all have them. We all push aside feelings that we don't want to feel. And we manage the best we can. But then we get reactive, and sometimes we get reactive and hire an attorney to get reactive for us. So when they see this on my board or on my easel, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who feels this way, and it's pretty normal, I guess. And then what I let them know, even in the first session, is that they came into the relationship each needing something different based on their family of origin. And I help the woman understand that maybe because she was one of 6 children and her father was an alcoholic, she never learned how to ask for what she needed. And it's important for her to do the work she needs to do to have more confidence in herself and unburden that pain and get more courageous in asking for what she needs. But I remind the individual or the couple that until now, they've done the best they knew how to do, that they can learn a new method of communication, both for the sake of the children, if they have any, and also to set them free. So even if they're in the middle of a divorce or post-divorce, it's freedom, it's compassion. And depending on how spiritual they might be, I mentioned that their partner is an angel to help heal burdens from the past, because the partner is going to trigger them in all the ways they are triggered in order for healing to happen. So I'm going to do a little meditation to get to self, and I'm going to come out of the share. Because what I want to let you know with this meditation is that I use it in the first session. So basically, we've been talking for about an hour, and I know there's a lot of information, and I'm sorry if I've gone fast. I'll make it up to you. But in that session, what I invite them to do is what I'm going to invite you to do right now. What I'm going to invite you to do is go into your body. Take a few breaths and just notice where you're feeling any tension or tightness. And I'm going to do that self up the mountain meditation that I do with them, that Dick did with me, because I want you to have a felt sense so you can offer your clients this felt sense, either with the meditation or separately. So for this exercise, if you could think of something or someone, think of someone that you've got a conflict with. Just pick anybody. And notice when you think about having a conflict with that person, what happens to your body. Notice you might be tight in your chest, in your throat, behind your shoulders, in your head. Just notice. And when I'm talking to an individual or a couple, and I've gone over myself in parts, and I've hit them with a lot of information, a lot to think about, brought up all the issues that are dividing them, guess what's happening in their body? Exactly, they're tight, right? So what I want to help them do is to get to self and have a felt sense. So I tell them we're going to do a brief meditation, and in the meditation, I'm going to have just 2 minutes. So even people that don't know why they're coming, don't know anything about meditation, and as an aside, when I first about It looks like my default speaker has come out. Can you hear me now? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, good. Sorry. Earphones. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Roll with it, right? So what I was saying is when I first started practicing, I never used the word spiritual. I don't know, many of you may be old enough to remember Groucho Marx with You Bet Your Life, and the duck would come down and the music would go off when a magic word was said. Well, I didn't usually use the word spiritual in the past until someone mentioned it. But now I often do. And I do even when I'm interviewing them, because I ask them, what is their spiritual belief? Not in a religious sense, but I want to learn their vernacular for what self means. Is it God, higher power, nature, universe, true self? I want to ask them because that's how I will refer to it with them. And what I want to help them do is get more in touch with that so they can bring that energy back to their relationship. So here we go with the meditation. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you as if I talk to them. So now that I've got all your parts reactive and you notice what's happening in your body, I want you to take a couple belly breaths. So inhale, so your belly expands. Exhale, back to your spine. Good. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. One more. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. Good. Now close your eyes gently. And as you sit there, as your feet touch the ground, imagine that they're growing roots to the center of the earth. And as those roots go deeper and wider, you're going to feel very firmly rooted or planted or grounded, like a tree or a mountain, so that whatever swirls around you isn't going to take you off your foundation. And then you're going to invite in from the earth some energy that's very calm and very compassionate. So allow that nurturing energy to come up from the earth, up your feet, your calves, your knees, your thighs, your hips, your groin, your stomach, your chest, and in and around your heart with all the feelings that are there. And then allow that nurturing energy to go up through your throat, your jaw, behind your eyes, to the crown of your head, and then out the crown of your head, all the way to the sky. And then invite down from the sky, nature, universe, higher power, God, whatever out there. Invite down some energy that's very calm and very compassionate. And then breathe even bigger than yourself. So you surround yourself with this calm, compassionate energy of self. And then if you would, focus that energy inward. Start at the top of your head and scan your body to the soles of your feet. And just notice. Notice where you feel any tension or tightness. Notice your thoughts. Notice your feelings. And as you notice these parts, let these parts notice you, surrounded and supported by this calm, compassionate energy of self. And then if you would, for just a few moments, imagine yourself going through a doorway into a beautiful scene in nature. The air is perfect, the sun is shining, and you see before you a path that you safely walk to the base of a mountain. And what you're going to do for just a few moments is to separate from your parts and go up in self as high up the mountain as you want. So ask any part that's not sure what to do next if they'll separate. Ask any part that's holding resentments or blame or judgment if they'll separate. Ask the part that's being self-critical of yourself if it'll separate. Ask the parts that are feeling scared or worried or anxious if they'll separate.
Ask any part that feels sad or hurt or neglected to separate. Ask any part that is in peace to separate for just a few moments while you go up in self as high up the mountain as you want. And if you're thinking any thought or feeling any feeling that isn't peace, it's just a part from which you can separate for just a few moments. And wherever you decide to stop on the mountain, anywhere along the way or at the top, just rest and look at the view from up here. You may be aware of another presence, you may not. Either way is fine. And if you want, you can put your thumb and forefinger together to anchor this place as a place to come back to, because in just a few moments, you're going to go back down the mountain. But before you do, in your mind's eye, picture that person with whom you have a conflict at the top of their mountain without all of their parts attached. And as much as you can, send compassion in their direction. So in just a few moments, you're going to go back down the mountain to collect your parts, even if there's a part of you that doesn't want to, because you're going to realize that once you give your own parts the attention they need to unburden the pain from the past, they carry their own wisdom and light. So taking back your parts ever so gently, come back down the mountain, back down the path, back through the doorway, and back to your room. So how was that? Can you put into the chat, how was that? Actually, I'm going to unmute you all. You're all unmuted. How was that? Anybody?
Beautiful. Can you hear me?
Who said, Jacqueline, thank you. Beautiful and peaceful. Give me some other words for that, if you would. Because we co-created this. We co-created it, and this is what you create in your office. Helpful to meet my ex. Thank you, Shobha. Yeah, elevating, all those words. This is what I do with my clients, whether they coming in for individual counseling, couples counseling, or both of them are so mad at each other they can't wait to get divorced. This is what I do in my first session. And they walk out feeling what self means. And depending on how much time I have in the first session, I will sometimes introduce the miracle of empathy, but that's where we're starting next time. So I'll show you how once they've begun to come from their higher self, they can then practice, yes, more compassion. Yeah. I would like to put you back on video. How do I start video? Julie, can you make everybody back on video? I don't know if I can. If you want to be, I'd love to you.
I can do it.
Because officially we did it. We got to the material. Is there a template for the meditation? Not only is there a template, I'll give you the full meditation, both the audio for it and the verbal. All of it's in my book, by the way. Oh, thank you. Thank you for noticing all my parts are being activated too. Yes, they are. I appreciate that. So what else? Let me see. Can I see you all, Julie, or not? Can't see them. Okay, there we go. Put your things on so I can see you. Here we go. What else? Raise your hand or just talk. You're all unmuted, and I'd love you to share what you can because we're co-creating this. Do I find sometimes men are resistant to meditation? How do I handle it? Great question. I tell them ahead of time, it's booga booga. I tell them ahead of time, it's only going to take 2 minutes. Sometimes I tell them ahead of time, I will give them an extra 2 minutes at the end of their session so they don't think I'm wasting their time instead of my time. So yes, and even if they sit there and their eyes are open and they're staring at me and I smile back at them, they're exposed to this energy and it works. There's never been one time when I haven't been able to do this, never. But yes, And it's not just men that are resistant. It depends on, some people don't want to let their feelings down. And then, of course, once they do the self up the mountain, sometimes all the sadness comes up that they've been sitting on. So, yes. Other questions, please. Thoughts out loud or in the chat, whatever works. So here's the official close. Officially, namaste. Thank you for being here. Unofficially, I'm staying to answer any questions anybody has. But for those of you who have to go because I said it was 90 minutes, thank you, thank you. I will send you a link to the replay and also send you a link to download. So what you have is the download on the self and parts, the download on the initial interview. I will send you all the questions that I asked in the initial interview, so you have that. I'll post that too. What else am I missing? Anything? That cover it? Cool. All right, so I'm gonna, oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just have to take a moment, since we're on my time, for just a minute, and tell you that this class truly is a dream come true for me. Okay, for 30 years I've been doing this, and it's been a dream of mine to be able to offer this to people who are interested all over the world. The fact that you are here participating with me is such an honor to me that it's making me verklempt, so I'll stop talking, but truly, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna stay on. Those of you who have to go, I'll see you next time. Those of you who wanna stay on, I'm here as long as you are. Questions, go ahead.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Please, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so I'll try to make it succinct. I work with, without even trying, I work with people with personality disorders. They just, it's actually the adult children of personality disorders. I myself have, it's a long story, I have a mother who's a narcissist. When I've introduced the concept of parts to friends, to everyone, they all get, oh, I have a part of me that wants to do this and another part of me that would rather stay home. They all get it, except when I introduced it to my mother, who I know is a narcissist, and she immediately, she just had a wall up. Oh no, I never have felt that.
Yeah, so she's got some really good extreme parts that are protecting her. So her narcissistic part is the one that she has used her whole life to stand guard against feeling vulnerable. And your question about that is, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, surely you must run into this occasionally in your clients. Like, how do you deal with that when you just hit a client, when, I shouldn't say hit a client, but when you encounter a client who just has the walls up and just cannot see the idea of parts?
Oh, I don't always use the word parts. I have it in my vernacular, and after the 2-minute blurb, I may never use the word parts again. So I don't care if they understand parts. It gives a framework for it, but whatever they need in terms of healing, unburdening, listening, compassion, I gave you a lot of information today, but that's not how I do my sessions. I'd lose everybody if I did one. Gotta slow it down. But yeah, it's a way to just keep the framework, but I'm not dogmatic about the framework. So, I don't care if they understand parts, as long as I feel that they're feeling more peaceful, feeling more calm, feeling more compassionate to themselves first. I feel we're making progress. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, if not, ask again in a different way and I'll try again.
Thank you.
Who else? Okay, oh, working with a couple, here we go. Working with a couple, one is an attorney and the husband in a hospital being treated for substance abuse. They are highly conflictual and the wife has a personality disorder. Oh boy, they are on a constant roller coaster. When one is in, the other is out. They create all kinds of conditions that need to be met, holding each other hostage. It's a complete roller coaster all the time. Any suggestions for grounding this? Is it appropriate for me to work with each individually and also see them as a couple? Your thoughts? A lot of questions in there, let me answer. I see couples individually and together. And the reason I do that is I tell them what I'm helping them do individually is to work with their parts so they can be more self-led when they're back in session together. So I get because I won't work with just one and not the other, because then they'll feel like I'm taking sides, but I will offer them their own time to do that. When you're working with so much pursuing distance or perceptions and things like that, sometimes there's some paradoxical interventions you can do, which basically says, just tell them to keep doing it. You know, you can point out to them that when she does this, you do that, and she does that, and go right ahead and do it. You know, you go, guys. How's it working for you? You want to keep doing it, keep doing it. You can pay me to watch you do it. I won't keep you very long. Or are you willing to learn a new way to communicate? And then I slow it down. And then it gets us into the miracle of empathy that we'll be talking about next week, where I help them have a conversation about everything, but talk about their exiled parts with I messages instead of you messages and their walls up. Does that make sense? Who asked me that?
Linda, me.
Thanks, Linda. Did that
Thank
answer
you.
the question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You know, the other thing I do, and we'll get to it later, is sometimes I do psychodrama with them. And what that means is I will actually get up from my chair, and I have exiles on this side of the room, managers here, and extreme parts here. And I go stand them up in their extreme parts, and then I move them into, you're getting extreme like that because you're really trying to manage by being reasonable and caretaking, but underneath, you really feel sad. Is that right? And meanwhile, their partner's watching me move them around the room. Okay? And then I have them sit down and thank all their parts for what they're trying to do, but try to help them be more self-led. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But sometimes just run with it. Let them
Thank
see what it looks like.
So Linda, you made mention that you don't always use the word parts when you're working with an individual or a couple. What are some other words or synonyms that you do use to make it potentially more palatable?
Feelings. How do you feel?
Okay.
What do you
Okay.
do? What do you do? What do you
Okay.
think? You know,
Okay,
it's kind
good,
of like,
good,
what's your
helpful.
behavior? What's your thought? Even when I was doing the meditation, I said, go into your body, notice where you have tension and tightness, notice your thoughts, notice your feelings. Those are all parts. But
Okay.
once I give them my 2-minute blurb in the first session, I will come back to it when I have the content merits the process to stop and do some IFS work. Okay,
Okay.
so if they want to
That's
talk
helpful.
about their children and they're both enough in self, we'll just keep going at it. But if I hear a part come up, because I'm a part detector, you're a part detector, if I hear the part come up, I will either work with the partner in the room, or I'll ask the partner to leave and I'll help them direct access their part, calm it down, be more in self, give the partner equal time if they need it, put them back together. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Are there other synonyms you use to the phrase move into self
Yes.
or go into self? Are there other synonyms?
Thank you.
Because I find, especially working with pastors, which is my primary group, that can sound to them like, it can sound kind of, yeah,
Sound kind of
off. To them, it can
godlike?
sound,
God-
sound new age, spiritual.
Yeah. Yes. That's why when I talk to them, usually in the first session, and I'll ask them about their spiritual leanings,
Yeah.
I get from them, and well, I don't go to church very, I said, I'm really not talking about religion.
Yeah.
You know, do you believe that there is something outside of yourself? If they say they believe in God, I usually say, where is God? All around. But I don't stop until they put God in here.
Sure.
And I said, well, that's what self is. Self is when you're connected to God, connected to your higher power, connected to your true self. So
Perfect. Good.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. And yes, new agey woo-woo spirituality. My whole family thinks I'm nuts, but that doesn't stop me.
I'm not opposed to that by any stretch. But I my primary clientele are come from the faith tradition of Christianity.
Great.
And honestly, some Christians can be a bit legalistic when it
Okay.
comes to some of those kinds of terms.
Good. Then check with them. Check with them and see what word works for them.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, for some people, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in a higher power, but they feel calm in nature.
Mhm.
Great. So go to a place where you feel calm. And when I do an unburdening with them, I have them pick a place, visualize the place, put a frame around the picture, move the color through, and they bring it in that way. So there's a lot of different ways
Great. Great.
to help them get to self. I love your questions. Keep them coming. And yes, the Q&A will be in the recording. We're still recording.
I have another question if that's
Yes.
okay.
Sure, Marilyn.
I've only practiced IFS with practice partners who are either coaches or becoming therapists themselves. But I have noticed a sort of a consistency that their protector parts will sometimes get mad at me.
Ooh, who's protective part?
Whoever I'm working with.
Really?
So
They get-
even though I'm always asking permission, I can tell when they start to balk, it's a protector part that's angry that I'm trying to ask questions about it or an exile and I'm wondering what others find around that. Like, and I've acknowledged that to the person, but then they kind of don't, I don't know. It's like they're like, I just experience it as a resistance to the parts work in general, but I try not to take it personally because I realize it's one of their protector parts that's very strong and going, we're not going here.
Great. Let me answer that question. Paul, I know you have to leave. So Marilyn, what you said is you're working with somebody that's coaching you?
No, like we're practice partners. I have done it with actual clients.
Okay. But who gets, I don't know who's getting mad at you, the practice partner?
Yes.
Okay, good. That would be a great time to stop, to just pause the action. And we'll talk more about empathy next time.
Okay.
But it would be, can we talk about this? Because I see that something just triggered you. Can we stop what we're doing and talk about what just happened? Okay? So it gives them a chance to say, I don't want to talk to you about the process. I'm just doing it. Let me finish and then we'll talk about it afterwards, which might be their issue. You know, it might be that you just reminded them of somebody that they knew. It may be that they're not really in the mood to do this now. I don't know, but it takes you deeper.
Yeah.
So stay in the present and instead of working through the content, get to the process of what just happened.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have
You
you
know,
ever
you can-
experienced that?
Yeah,
though?
go ahead.
Have you ever experienced that where it comes across as, but you can sense it's their protector part? It's not necessarily a personal.
You mean when I'm working with a therapist or when
No,
I'm
when
working
you're
with a client?
working like with a client. That they're
Oh,
protector.
sure. Oh, yes. Welcome their protector parts. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you meant you were working with somebody that was coaching you and they got mad at you. Absolutely, the clients can get mad at you because we're inviting them to look at life in a different way. And all the ways they protected themselves come out to protect themselves. So you could acknowledge, you know, is there something I said that upset you? You know, I'd like, again, whatever you were just talking about, stop what you were talking about and go, I just noticed that in the way you said that, it feels like, you know, something just got triggered. Would you like to discuss it?
Thank you.
And then you follow that trailhead because that took precedent. Because you can't go back to being in self when a part is triggered.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
But you just go wherever they take you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Oh, super. What can I make a suggestion to Marilyn? Oh, sure. Yes, Linda says, I would wonder if Marilyn is asking the part if it would like attention from the beginning. If so, I would suggest that she just get curious about the reaction, just a suggestion. Exactly. Thanks, Linda. You know, just say, I just noticed and I'm just curious about what just happened. So you don't have to get defensive. You go back to curiosity and compassion. Thank you, Linda. Great. Okay, how we doing? Any more questions for now? Because if you have any after this, put them in our Facebook group. I will be checking them. Yes,
The meditation, that was really amazing. This has been very helpful. Thank you.
I'm so glad, Leslie.
I was, as soon as you said to start heading up the mountain, I instantly felt guilty for leaving them behind. And then it was like instantaneous, it split off, and I realized it wasn't me feeling guilty, it was my guilt tripper trying to make me feel guilty. And I went anyway, and I think what I needed to do was to attend to her for just a minute and then go, because when I looked back, she was standing there with her arms folded, just glaring at me. And I thought, oh, I already messed it up. So
Great.
that was really interesting.
Thanks for mentioning that. A couple things. There is no way to do it wrong. So a lot of clients won't find themselves that they can't separate. And it's like, what part can't you separate from is the part we need to deal with right away. When I was going through the meditation, in my head, I was thinking, I'm not covering enough parts. I'm giving you a short list. Okay. And when you do the initial interview, when you've got that intake interview in front of you and you've seen what parts they have, what parts their partner has, when you're doing the meditation, it is structured around that person. So you know if they're an initiator to a divorce, for instance, they feel guilty and they have to, you know, have that step back. So there's a lot of, oops, Shobha went out and now she's coming back in. Hi, Shobha. You were out, now you're in. I think she's in. There you go, you're back. Okay. So does that answer your question? The question was, I'm back to it. Going up the mountain, guilt, yes. So you make sure that you name as many parts as possible. And when you're done and they say to you, I couldn't do that because my guilty part was just doing this, you say, fantastic. What does your guilty part want us to know?
Yeah, yeah, and it rapid fired. It went from guilt instantly to criticism for me going up the mountain and then resentment. And it was just so quick. And I can see how when I'm working with clients, they experience the same thing. And they say, oh, I don't know where this is coming from. Oh, I don't know why this is coming up right now. I just got this flash of something. And that to me is what's amazing about the parts, is that they just throw the stuff in there at just the right time. So it makes perfect sense. So that was really helpful.
Good. And when we do the miracle of empathy next time, and when your clients do the miracle of empathy, they will build on what they just did to get to self, because they're going to recognize their parts are going to want to intercede for them, which is an empathy. Okay. So we'll talk more about that next week. It's kind of like, how do you really keep coming back to that calm, compassionate place inside of you and do the work from there.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Lauren.
How long are your first sessions?
An hour.
Like an hour? And in the outline, do you have like approximate suggested length of time for each aspect of the session? Like how much time to spend on those interviews? Like you said, like the, you know, like the meditation is X number of minutes, and the, you know, each client, each person.
I'll give you that. So I'm looking at an hour. We'll talk a couple. Okay, a couple comes in, don't know why they're coming in. Talk to them alone talk to them together 2 or 3 minutes. Just chit chat. Ask who wants to talk first. And if I talk to somebody on the phone, they talk second. The other one goes out in my office. That interview template takes me 10 or 15 minutes. And the reason I want to role play it for you is because I'm very directive in a very compassionate way. So instead of opening the door to get a story, I ask a question to listen for a part. I go to another question and I fill out my little mental image of who are all the parts involved here. So that'll take maybe 5 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. So that's 35 minutes, let's say, right? Get them back in my office together and do my blurb, where I show them how their parts work with each other's parts, etc. Get them all psyched up and nervous and anxious because we've just covered everything that they didn't know they were going to cover. And then I do the meditation. Within 50 minutes, maybe. Sometimes it goes faster. And then they walk out with some hope that they may actually learn how to communicate in a way that they didn't know when they came in.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. I think the demonstration will be helpful because that direct being directive makes sense. Like
Yeah.
they have their stories. Like you could give them 5 hours and they could go on a
Yeah.
story. And so how you are directive in that way to keep it.
We'll start next time with a role play. And if somebody wants to, you'll let me know, or otherwise I'll pick somebody, but I'll put somebody on and I'll just do the interview. We might, it's all a time factor. I do it as often as we could, but there's a different way of working with an individual than a couple, but not really, because you're still doing the same blurb and the same, you're just representing their partner's point of view based on what they told you about what their partner doesn't like about them, right? You already asked the question, what do you do that upsets your partner? Well, he would have told me that, or she would have told me that. So I just help them navigate that. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Other questions before we go? I'm honored that you stayed on to ask. Anybody else? Thoughts? Isn't it a cool group of people? Yes, eating disorders, collaborative attorneys, parent advisors, trauma specialists, clergy. I mean, we have it all here. So all right, I'll put it out there. My goal is that we take this wherever we're using it and just spread it around the world. That's my goal. So that whenever there's an issue that resolves conflict, people know these skills and can just pick them up and use them. And that they can find people that are trained in this, which I hope to be a referral source for people that are trained in it. And there's going to be a certification process this year, so that I can refer to people that actually know this process, and you can take that, because I'm going to be 73 this month. So thank you, Shop Looks Anywhere. Thank you very much. So I'm looking to pass this on to you guys and teach you everything I know. So any last questions before I reveal everything about myself? Anybody else? Well, thank you. I will see you next Tuesday, same time, same place, hopefully a little more technologically ready. And put anything you want in the group. We've got a great group to build on and build community with. So namaste, the light in me sees the light in all of you. Bless you. Thank you. Be continued. And those of you who are on replay, love you too. You're part of this group. Jump into the group and we'll get to know you too. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye for now. Thank you, Julie, for being here too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.